electronic devices have been turned to off. Ladies and about to begin, we would like to ask you to please take your seats, and one more time, please ensure that all electronic devices have been turned to off or silent. Thank you for your cooperation. We will be starting in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Unity Technologies, John Riccitiello.
So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unite 2015. It's great to be in Boston, welcoming 1,500 people. A brilliant mix of indies and AAA studios, a mix that we're so proud of. What you guys build represents an unbelievable range of content development, game development, that I think really sets the pace for the entire industry. Now, you guys know Unity. It's a company that has been founded on and led in a principled way for many, many years. I just want to touch on those before we get started today. So, you've heard us talk a lot about democratization. That is really the founding mission of this company. The idea is to put the powerful tools, the best tools for game development, in the hands of the developer to unleash their creativity, whether they can afford it or not. You know what about our business model? Yeah, it's a little bit complicated for stage, but the key idea is we want to see more people in the world creating content than ever before, and we do a lot of things to make that happen. We fundamentally believe the world is a better place when there's more people creating content, and we're here to make that happen. Now, we talk a lot about solving hard problems. Game production is fundamentally a difficult thing to do. Getting your game on multiple platforms is a very hard thing to do. We want to make those things as easy as they possibly can, once again, to unleash your creative power, whether you're a small indie or a big studio. We like to think of it this way. When you work with Unity, it's like you've got 400 engineers just on the other side of the wall, working for you, making it possible for you to make better and better games and realize your own vision. And more recently, we've added a plank to our principles, and it's about enabling success. We understand that as hard as it is to build a game, to get your game ready for multi-platform, it can be as hard or harder to have that game monetized, to have that game discovered, to have that game find its audience. And while we're at the early stages, you've already seen what we're doing on ads and analytics, bringing revenue for tens of thousands of new games. We're now going to start talking to you later today. Clive Downing, our CMO, towards the end, is going to talk about what we're going to do to help you with discovery. It's our mission to enable your success. So the company you see up here, this is the same principled company you've always known. We're after doing the same things, driven by being on your side of the equation. But if there's a change, it's that we have more ambition for you to help you not only from content development, but all the way through discovery and monetization. Now, at the center of all of this is you. There's a massive community of people building on Unity. Last month alone, in the month of August, over 1 million different developers used Unity. I'll give you some perspective on that. That's a group of people, designers, artists, and more. But last year this time, so August of 14, that was 600,000 people. So you can see there's a lot of growth in our community. You guys are the tip of the spear. But another way to think about it, let me just dimensionalize that. So if you imagined all the employees of Google, all 57,000 of them, if you tried to figure out how to get to 1 million, you'd need 17 Googles, where everybody from the security guard to the CEO is coding in Unity to get to that number. Or if you think about a massive company, super successful company like Facebook, you would need 90 Facebooks to get to the number of people just in the last month that are building on Unity. Or if you take some of the biggest game companies in the world, like an Electronic Arts or an Activision, it would take 125 of those companies. I bet you didn't know there were that many people working in the industry, let alone building on Unity. You guys are part of one of the most important movements, most important communities in the world, and the numbers are legion. Now, I want to talk about a few of the things that you have done as a community just in the last couple months. 174,000 different games were built by you in the last few months. You guys have generated 2.5 billion downloads, and those downloads have been realized on 1.1 billion different handsets. Think about the audience you're reaching just through this community. Over 1 billion consumers. But I'm going to talk to you about a number that frankly blows my mind. What you achieved last month for downloads. 1.2 billion downloads. Now, a lot of you, maybe don't have a game in the top 5 or the top 10, but you might imagine, what this number represents compared to, say, the top 5 or top 10. And so Is it anywhere near that number? Does the top 10 get there? Not even close. That's only 240 million installs. All the top 10 games, from China to Japan, Singapore to West Germany, Sweden to the United States, Mexico, and Latin America, added up to 240 million. Unity alone last month, 1.2 billion. How about the top 50? What do you get with the top 50? Again, not even close. About 591 million compared to 1.2 billion. I'm going to click forward a little bit. Oops, I think I had to click backwards. I'm one step ahead. In order to get to 1.2 billion, every single game in the top 250 globally, add them all up, and you get to a number that's just shy of what you as a community did in the last month. So as I said, you're powerful, you're big, and there's another part of this world that I think you need to better understand to see just how powerful. We're at the very early stages of Unity helping monetize your games through advertising. And already 22,000 of your games are up on the Unity network. Last month alone, those games generated 2 billion video ads. So there's a lot of money being made by people in the game community that are working with Unity. And they reached, just in the month of August, 500 million different consumers. That is a big network, both to have your game be discovered and a big network for you to generate revenue where you might not otherwise have generated it before. So as much as it's about numbers, let's be realistic. It's about the games. I'm going to touch just on a few. We don't have time to catalog everything. But what you see up here is just a representation of some of the more interesting games that have come up in the 2D arena in the last couple of months. You've all heard of, Cuphead, based on 1930s animation, a shooter runner. I mean, what a beautiful piece of work. And we should all be proud in our community for what this is. A big favorite around the office, Ori and the Blind Forest. It brings a painting to life. It's like every pixel lives. Now, I'm not going to walk through all of these. I just want to remind you that there's a big presence in 2D, and you can make some really beautiful products. Of course, Unity lives in the world of 3D. Unity 3D's, our website. You're going to see later today, Lara Croft Go, a personal favorite, and something I think is going to go right up to the top of the charts. Or you can look at things that are just, frankly, as cool as Umbrella Corp. There are so many awesome 3D games being brought to market built on Unity. And you've heard us make a lot of noise about VR and AR. Without doubt, Unity is the biggest platform in the world, right in the middle of VR and AR. More content is built in VR and AR than any other platform by a country mile. And, I mean, you wouldn't even know this, but look at, Vive when they did their big GDC unveil with Tilt Brush. Again, they got their own engine, but this was built on Unity. Or look at Lucky's Tale, a beautiful story built on Unity. If you try any of these things, you'll get a chance while you're here. I mean, the world of VR and AR is super exciting, and you're going to see us present on stage today in about 40 minutes a lot more about how easy it is for you to get to VR and AR. So it's really about the games, and it's about what you build. Now, if I wanted to, we could bring up a lot of folks here. We're going to only be able to bring up 3 because there's a limit of time. But we wanted the range of people we showed games from to represent AAA all the way down to the smallest indie. You're going to see products from a full range of people. And they're each going to tell their story. They're each going to show you their game. They're going to describe you why they're excited about what they're building. And first up is a game from Kixeye. And I'd like to welcome a very old friend of mine up to stage to show you a great product. Lou Castle. He is one of the founders of Westwood. He built Command & Conquer, so when it comes to RTS, he knows where it comes from. Lou Castle, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, John. Hey, everybody. I'm going to say I'm very pleased, because I think somebody has to buy a beer if I say excited. So I'm very pleased to be here at Unite and to be able to share with you all a preview of a mobile MMO RTS, War Commander Rogue Assault, that I'm working with the great guys at Kixeye. And in the spirit of what John just said about showing you, not telling you, we're going to run a little trailer, and I'll talk over some gameplay. So let's start with that. I need to be back on. Okay, so I'm going to talk over some gameplay here, because we've got a very short period of time on here. As you can see from that video, this is a 3D game. This is not a PC, Mac, anything like that. This is actually a mobile game playing on pads and phones. But it's truly an RTS game. So what you're seeing right now, we can bring the audio up a little bit, yeah. What you're seeing right now is people can actually select the individual units and change your defense, change your attack while in the middle of the base is being defended. Really, Unity has given us the tools to do some amazing thing with visual graphics, visual effects on this game. You can see water shaders, atmospheric effects, some really fantastic explosions. Can't quite hear our audio effects, although they're pretty cool too. And so really what was exciting about this for me was bringing that classic RTS experience to this portable universe of tablets and phones. And it was great, it has been great and continues to be great to work with the guys at Kixeye. Those are the guys who invented the category, really, of sort of strategy games with backyard monsters and things like desktop tower defense. And it's not just an RTS game. That's the core game loop, but this is a PvE and a PvP game. So what you're seeing here is a small section of southeast France. We use real global data for creating the world map, and that's the war zones where you actually get into fights with other people. It is a truly MMO experience. You have alliances. You get to work with large groups to go after group goals and own territory and fight over those types of things as well. So every time you're moving around on the world map, you go back into the core RTS loop of fighting for your space. So back to the 3D side of things and watching the battle. This is actually one of our, I think the guy who cut the video actually was one building this base and might be Derek's base that he's trying to beat. So the whole idea here, again, go back into that RTS roots. I don't have a lot more to share with the game right now. It is a preview. We expect to be out relatively soon. And of course, built with Unity, Unity 5 and all the wonderful tools that they've afforded us. So thanks again for everything, John, and I'll let it finish off. Thanks.
Congratulations, Lou. That looks like a fantastic game, and I know you're going to find a lot of success with it. Now, with this, we're now going to turn to the more technical side. I think what a lot of you have come here for to learn about. And I'm going to start by just reminding you where we've been most recently. It was about 180 days ago that we launched Unity 5. And what we told you at the time was it's a graphic powerhouse, feature-rich and a hugely flexible editor, industry-leading multi-platform support, 21 platforms at the time, more today. Unmatched efficiency, we brought you a lot of cloud service, and frankly, a licensing model that I'm really proud of, together with what we've done with Personal Edition and Pro. We really think it best supports our community. Now, here's something new. We shipped it on time. We followed it with 11 patch releases on equal cadence, each with a step forward. And precisely 3 months later, we launched Unity 5.1 on schedule. Multiplayer support, support for Oculus, cloud build on the Mercurial side, unified OpenGLES, analytics SDK integrated. Big step forward 90 days later. We followed that once again, step by step, week by week, with improvements to what we've provided you with Unity 5.1. Bringing us just a few weeks ago when we introduced Unity 5.2. Full service integration on ads and analytics. You'll see more from John Cheng today. Morpheus native, Windows 10 UWP, Visual Studio integration, IL2 CPP support for Xbox One and PS4, lighting improvements, 2D improvements, yet again, a big step forward. Now, we're relatively new in this cycle because we just released 5.2. You can expect patch releases all the way up to a precise noon on Unity 5.3 on December 8th, with a bunch of big steps forward again around 2D features, animation improvements, editor multi-screen support, OpenGL4, Mono Develop 5.9. Again, big steps forward on a schedule you can count on, you can believe in, and you can plan for. Very new for us. And in Unity 5.0, we're going to be right back in San Francisco with GDC, 2D features, a lot more coming. This is only the beginning of that list. Now, looking at a slide like this, you might not recognize this. And I just want to remind you something. This is the same Unity we know, the same Unity you know. It is clearly driven by principles, the principles to be on your side, democratization, helping you solve hard problems, enabling your success. And that is an ambition. It's not for us. That ambition is for you to realize the success you deserve, you want, you dream of in the game industry. So that's what we're about. And now to help us dive a lot more into the detail on the technical side, Lucas Meyer. Lucas?
Thanks, John. Hey, everyone. It's great to be back at Unite in the US. It's been a very interesting year. One of the biggest things that happened in the industry at large, but especially at Unity, is the enormous momentum that virtual reality and augmented reality has had. Unity 5.2, it ships with out-of-the-box support for the Oculus Rift, for the Gear VR, for PlayStation VR. And on the augmented side, we've announced support for Microsoft HoloLens. I lost my words. What do you know? So to start off this technical session, actually, what I want to do first is take a look at some of the content that's already been produced by the Unity community for these devices. Let's take a look. Wow, it's so much stuff. And it's crazy if you think about it, how recent all this VR and AR stuff is. And as an industry, we're still trying to figure out, how to make content for these devices. There's already so much content being created by you for these devices. It's really amazing. So to kick off the technical session, we're going to start off with our first demo. And we're going to show a slice of what the authoring environment looks like for if you want to use Unity to create content for VR. And we actually have a Microsoft HoloLens here on stage, so we're going to be able to show a little bit of what the authoring experience looks like if you want to make Microsoft HoloLens content. And who better to do so than our very own Pete Moss.
Thanks,
Take it away, boy.
Hi, everyone. What I'd like to show you today is some new ways of working with content in Unity, specifically for VR and AR. My team back in Unity Seattle, the Creative Content Studio, which I'm a member of, built a scene that will lend itself to a lot of flexibility. One thing I'd like to mention is that fall is setting in Seattle. It's starting to get cold, and we need new sweaters. So we built a scene to handle all these cases. What we need to do this is, first of all, a small chunk of farmland. You can see it here on the screen. And what's really important about it is that we have a shear-o-matic. The shear-o-matic is our sheep shearing machine, and it's our little nod to Wallace and Gromit. We're going to use that, but to use that machine, we're going to need a sheepdog. We have a dog right here. His name's Carl. Maybe named after Carl Calvert, maybe not. The biggest dog I know. And Carl here is our sheepdog. He has several very smart abilities. He can guide the sheep around. They'll move away from him. He can bark. You can actually see his bark animation kind of freeze frame there, so that he can provide a little more impetus to the sheep to get them to move along. And he's also very smart, as I said. He won't walk into the creek. He won't walk into the shear-o-matic and get sheared himself. So very, very smart dog, always handy. But we need to shear something. I shouldn't have used that word. So we need some sheep. We're jokers on our team, and so we've named our sheep after the Golden Girls. I'm going to introduce them here. We've got Dorothy. She's pretty cute. Sophia, Rose, and of course, Blanche, who's already naked. But just having the Golden Girls isn't enough. We also need an alpha sheep. No. We need an elvish sheep to lead them into Graceland. Look at that. Look at that pompadour. Oh, yeah. So our elvish sheep will walk around the scene, and the Golden Girls will tend to flock to him for a little extra protection, and he will help lead them into Graceland. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do is run this demo and just kind of give you a sense of how it works. You can see that Carl, our dog, follows the cursor around, and I can guide it with the mouse. Carl's very smart and can walk across. I can also make him bark. Hey, Carl, I got a joke for you. What did the dog say to the tree? Bark, Carl, bark! Do it. So you can chase the sheep around, and the goal is to actually get one into the shear-o-matic. I've wedged them in here. Let's give them a second. It always works better in rehearsal, as you can imagine. There we go. There's one. It gets sucked in. The animations are very cute. We got a sweater, and we got a new naked sheep. Okay, so that gives you a taste of how it works. And I want to switch gears very slightly here. And I want to analyze the scene from a different point of view. So what I'd like to do is switch into VR mode. And I want to give you an example of how that works. So as you can tell, it's the same exact scene. I haven't touched the camera. I haven't moved anything. But I do want to enable VR mode. And the way you do that is you go to Project Settings, you go to Player. And there's a little checkbox down here at the bottom. It's called Virtual Reality Supported. I'm just going to click that box. And to test it and prove how awesome it is, I've got an Oculus Rift DK2 right here. Many of you have these. Many of you have probably played with this Switch. I hope you have. If you haven't, it's right there waiting for you. And I'm going to try the same scene in VR. Okay, as you can see, I can move around the scene. My gaze now directs the dog, and I can move him and guide the sheep back into the shear-o-matic. Let's see if I can get one. Oh, I almost got one. Yes. And here's the great thing. I can move in really deep. I can see the sweater fly, and I can see that sheep pop right out. The cool thing is I can move around the board, and it has a physical presence to me. And that's it. That's actually as easy as it is to create your very first scene in VR. And that's all it takes. There are, of course, other considerations, inputs, design considerations for VR are all very important. And the beauty is you guys are all here at Unite. There are several sessions. There's at least 2 or 3 today that will go into these details. And we have many other talks around the topic here. But now what I'd like to do is switch gears and try something that I think you've all been dying to get your hands on. The Microsoft HoloLens. I'm going to go ahead and put that on now. The beauty of the HoloLens, one of the many beauties of the HoloLens, I should say, is that I can actually wear the device and work on the computer at the same time. Now, you guys can't see exactly what I'm seeing, but I will show you a demo here of this exact same scene running with the HoloLens instead. So I'm just going to go ahead and click play. And the beauty is you can see that my head tracks. It's all available within Unity. I can guide the dog around using the gaze, but I also have some other input options. For instance, HoloLens offers me the capability of doing gesture recognition. So instead of a mouse click, I'm going to use the select gesture to scare the sheep away. I can do this repeatedly, and it works every single time. There are, of course, other features that the HoloLens has, not all of which I'm using right now, and those will be revealed over time as we can complete our development. But one of the things I would like to mention is that I can actually walk around the board. I can look at the board from different angles. I do have a tilt on it so that we could see it a little more clearly. And the beauty is if I walk over here and I look off stage this way and then come back, it's still in space. It floats right there. It's actually locked to the position just above my monitor here and will not deviate from that spot. Okay. Thank you. Now, one last thing, because it is a technical discussion, and seeing things is the biggest part of it, so I'd like to show you a bit of code here. The gesture recognizer is a new part of Unity and will be part of the HoloLens solution that we have. And I'm going to show you a bit of code here just so you can see how it works. This block right here is the most important part. You can see that we create a new gesture recognizer, just a very simple object. And we have to look for recognizable gestures. In this case, I'm only looking for the one, the select gesture. There are, of course, many other gestures that we'll be able to track, but this one is the most important for me at this time. So, and I also need to set up a delegate. In this case, I'm going to use a function called select event and set it to look for it, set enable to true. The most important part here, though, is just this delegate call. So every time it recognizes the gesture, it will call this function. This function is very simple. It actually does exactly the same code that my mouse click does, and it really is that simple to set it up. I could, of course, have many other gestures that I'm looking for, and I would just continually add them to a list. But as far as the instantiation, it's very direct and very simple. Okay. That's about it. I'd like to say that our support for VR and AR is nice. It's growing. It's getting better all the time. But it still has the ways to go. We're still working, and we're going to continue making it easier for you guys to use and continue to make Unity the best possible way to develop for VR and AR. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Really nice. So, probably most of you have actually tried a VR experience. If you haven't tried it, I can imagine that this just sounds like a guy saying like, yeah, it was all really amazing, but you don't really feel it yet. Like for me, I didn't really have much of a feeling of it until I actually put a device on my head and experienced it myself. So on the expo floor, we actually have a bunch of demo booths from Oculus. So if you haven't tried it yet, go to the expo booth, ask for a demo, and actually see for yourself what this is all about. All right, so more things happened this year. For us at Unity, one thing in particular to note is that we shipped Unity 5 with an enormous leap forward when it comes to graphics and performance. And we're going to see a demo from Joachim Ante, who's going to show us some of the bleeding edge stuff you can do with Unity today.
Thank you, Lucas.
Take it away.
Thank you. So, with Unity 5, we did a massive upgrade of what you can achieve in terms of graphics fidelity with Unity. We introduced physically based materials, a deferred render loop, real-time GI, reflection probes, and many, many smaller quality improvements. And with Unity 5.3, we have some significant improvements on top of that. We're switching to the GGX BRDF. The GGX BRDF gives more realistic highlights and reflections, especially for metals, but also very rough surfaces. While we're doing that, we're working very closely with Algorithmic to make sure that when you create PBR content in Substance Painter, it looks exactly the same as it does in Unity. And we also think that it's very important that when you author your content for PBR, that this content runs on all the platforms so that you can target a wide range of platforms with the same content. And so we spent a lot of time optimizing our standard shader, especially for mid-range mobile devices, so that you can create the content once, it runs everywhere, so there's lower quality, really optimized approximations to the PBR model, so that at least perceptually it looks very similar. But also, we've been working a lot on on the baking code, the real-time GI system, the lightmap baking code. And we made a little demo. We asked two of our community members, Alex Lovett and Thomas Pazieka, to take Enlighten and see how far they can push Unity, especially with regards to real-time GI. So I want to show that to you now. Okay, so we're just going to run that. So in this demo, you can really see how amazing the lighting looks. We have a full day-night cycle going on here. We can, I mean, there's a lot of controls that we can run. So here we can animate the shadows, so the sun and night day cycle changes. Also, when it gets night, there's all these lights. There is some emissive surfaces here. We can play with them and change the colors. There's this ring surrounding it, and basically light is emitting from that, and the global illumination system can handle that perfectly. So we can just change the color, and everything, of course, updates completely in real time. We can also change the colors of these industrial lights in the background, and of course, everything looks completely consistent when we do that. So that's just quite amazing, the type of quality that our users can achieve now with Unity. This demo, we are going to make it available as a standalone player and as a project folder in the next coming weeks. And another demo I want to show you is this realistic rendering demo. So in this demo, we basically took some assets from Evermotion. They have a lot of architectural assets that are very high quality, and you can really see how this looks almost completely real. And what we did in this demo, essentially, we took these assets, we put them into Unity, added Enlighten support to it, added some image effects, and then we had this demo, and we added a couple of cool controls here. You can change actually the materials, and what you see is, because of our real-time GI system, we can change the materials, and everything updates consistently when the materials change. So I can even go here. I can click on the surface. I can change the color in real time, and you can see how the floor changes its color, and the whole environment changes very subtly and accurately as you're changing the color. So that's really cool. So that's for some of the graphics features that we have in Unity 5. And now, Unity has always been very good at rapid prototyping, realizing and iterating on ideas very, very quickly. But recently, we focused a lot more on actually improving the last 20% of your game production. Basically, making it easier for you to actually ship your game. So these are features like multi-scene editing, build reporting tools, memory analysis tools, making our asset pipeline more scalable. So this is something that we're really investing heavily in now. And of course, an important part is also performance. This is especially a very big focus area for us. When we're multi-threading the engine, our approach is we want to keep the engine as simple as it is today. We want to maintain the simplicity of the script lifecycle and the execution order, but at the same time, we want to move all our engine code off the main thread and into jobs, so that basically the script code has the main thread almost all to itself. So in Unity 5.2, we added UI batch generation. We made it completely jobified, so it doesn't take any time on the main thread anymore. In 5.3, we took the particle system, the geometry generation, and we moved it into jobs. And also, over the last half year, we have been working on moving our render loops completely to the job system, so that basically the render loops aren't running on the main thread anymore at all. So multi-threading, again, something that we're very heavily investing in and moving forward. Another aspect is script performance. With Unity 5, we released IL to CPP, and we made some very big progress in the raw performance of script code with IL to CPP. In some cases, when you're doing math-heavy code, we've seen up to 5x performance improvements over the mono runtime. And with 5.3, we're deploying IL to CPP to iOS, Android, and all consoles. So we're basically expanding the breadth that you can reach with IL to CPP and get this amazing performance. Now, massive scale simulation. Recently, we've seen a lot more games made with Unity that are really doing massive scale simulation. And a great example of this, a game I really love, is City Skylines. It's built by a team of just 6 developers in Finland. And I believe it's very important to support these use cases really well. So we've been also adding some features to Unity that make that a lot simpler. So I want to show that to you right now. So this demo here, when we run it, in this demo, we have a whole city, and we're actually every frame simulating 25,000 characters. And at one time on screen, we have roughly 100 to 600 characters visible. And now you might ask, but how is this actually possible? Because that sounds like a lot. And the trick is, of course, when you're doing massive scale simulation, what's really important is you need to separate the presentation layer from the simulation layer. And you need to have very tight inner loops, very good data layout, and very optimized code and simplified code that deals with the simulation. So when we run this here from the scene view, we can see this whole city over here. We have our 25,000 agents, and each one is walking around. But in fact, they're only represented as these little dots that are moving around here. So when we look at the camera, for example, we can see these actual agents that are instantiated with, like full mechanism state machines and nav mesh agents and all that kind of thing. Those are basically transforming from these very simplified simulation states into full characters. So the camera always sees the full picture. And so you can see here, it's of course fully integrated with occlusion culling. And as the camera is flying around, these characters are turning in and out of the full representation. And the feature that we added, basically what we did is we added this feature called culling groups. And you can define an array of bounding spheres, and you have to simply update this bounding sphere. It's very tight data, and you control completely your simulation. And Unity simply tells you when a bounding sphere has become visible or invisible. And with that, you can react to it, create some characters, you can make spawning pools to share, to not allocate any memory when you're spawning these characters. So by doing this, you can do massive scale simulation. It's actually a very flexible system with which you can do a lot of things. It's really cool. So these are some of the things that we're doing for performance and just making massive scale simulation, but all kinds of use cases that push Unity much easier. So with that, I would like to welcome back Lucas Meyer.
Yeah. Nice job, buddy. Thanks, Joe. All right, so in terms of graphics and performance, Unity 5 has taken an enormous leap forward. However, there's also many game developers that don't choose Unity because of the amazing graphics or because of the raw performance, but that actually choose Unity because they like the very productive authoring workflow. And many of these games are 2D games. And we've taken a look at some of the 2D content that we've seen come by this past year, and we've made a video that I'd love to run. there's so much cool 2D content. And for us, like the people at Unity that work on the tool every day, it's incredibly humbling and rewarding to see that all the energy we put in, that it results in such a outburst of creativity leading to all these games. So we're incredibly thankful for that. There's one game from the trailer that when I saw it for the first time, it really its unique visual look really grabbed me, and it kind of blew me away the first time I saw it. It's a game called Cuphead. And I'm very happy to say that its lead developer is here with us today to share his story about their game. Well, help me welcome Tony Cuculuzzi to the stage.
Pronounced my name perfectly. It's good. Thanks, Lucas.
Hey, Tony. So cool you're here.
Thank you. All right, I'm sick, so bear with me. So hi, guys. I'm Tony, and I'm the lead developer on Cuphead. So with Cuphead, we're really trying to push the boundaries of 2D games. We're trying to make it look beautiful. We're trying to have as many 2D animations as possible. And like all of us, we're really influenced by cartoons from that generation. So we're trying to make it look as authentic as possible. And that's gained us a lot of public focus on our on our development process. People often say, they'll come up to us and say, oh, you guys you must be pushing Unity really hard. You must be doing some really crazy things. And whenever I hear this, I look at these people and I say, we're not. We're not doing anything special. And people are surprised. They don't believe me sometimes. And to be honest, if I were in their shoes, I probably wouldn't believe myself either. And I'll get into that in a sec. So when we started working on Cuphead, or we planned to bring it over to Unity, we sat down, we planned for a bunch of worst-case scenarios. And one of those worst-case scenarios was the fact that we might reach a point where Unity just doesn't want to handle any more assets, right? We have some scenes that they have upwards to like 1,000 unique high-resolution sprites. And so we thought, we might actually run into an issue. We might have to make our own system and throw it on top of Unity or something. We were okay with that. We were willing to, bite the bullet if that happened. But I'm happy to say, at this point, that hasn't happened. We haven't had to deal with that because Unity stuff just works. We're really using Unity in some really basic ways, like just using the regular sprite renderer, the atlasing stuff. We're not doing anything special. And that's really a testament to how far Unity's 2D tools have come, even in the past year. And that gives us a lot of time to focus on things that matter, right? Like gameplay stuff, designing, tweaking values for hours until it's perfect. The creative work, as opposed to, the boring work, right? Because with Cuphead, we want you to enjoy all factors of the game. Like, we want you to be looking at it. We're trying really hard to make it look really nice for you, but we want you to love playing it as well. We want you to love both things about it. And with Unity, I think we've been able to achieve this. So with that, I'll leave you with a trailer for Cuphead.
Wow. Thanks, Tony. You guys made something really, really special. Is the game out yet?
No, it's not out yet.
Are you going to send me a Steam code? You're going to send me a Steam code? All right, so as you can see, I think it's fair to say that there's, pretty much any 2D game that you could think of, you could make in Unity. However, we feel that there's more that we can do. Not only, does it need to be possible to make these kinds of games, what we actually want to do, we have put a lot of energy into making it more fun to actually make it, making the authoring experience more enjoyable. And we've been working on this for quite a while. We have some features coming down the pipe, and I'd like to use this opportunity today to show you 2 of them in a demo. All right, so wish me luck. I'm not kidding. Thanks. All right, so one of the techniques that 2D games often use is a technique called tile maps. I'm sure you've seen them before. We added native support to that in Unity. And let me just show you how that works. I can select my brush here. I'm going to go to my Wong wall, and I'm going to select the floor tile, and I'm just going to, let me zoom in a bit. I'm just going to draw some floor tiles here. And then if I want a wall around that, I'm going to select this one. I'm going to put a wall there, and maybe put some here, and then have some keys to rotate. And I can put these. And now I need 4 corners, so I guess this one, and that one, and that one. So, I can see that many of you have already dozed off. And that's because I had this idea of, I just want to draw a room here, and then the next 20 seconds I spent with all this minutia of, clicking tiles and making sure, I need to find the corner one here and the corner one there. And we thought that it's kind of silly because there's a very specific logic to these tiles, and why not make Unity actually understand that? So one of the things we did as a performance, like an authoring experience feature, is that we made these brushes that are a little bit smarter. And take a look at what happens when I draw with this one. Like the tiles around the tiles that I draw, they update automatically. If I add a bit here, like that, like all the work, all the annoying work of going here and figuring, is this the corner, is that the corner, it's all done automatically. So it's a very nice way to very quickly just draw tiles, and it removes these obstacles between the idea in your head and getting that idea in the scene. Let me show you a few more stuff. Like we have a rectangle tool here, so just look at how nice and fast it is to draw a map out. If you hold Shift down, you can remove stuff. So I can do like this, and before you know it, I'm not that good at level design, but you could imagine. Please just pretend that you think this is going to be a really fun level. I appreciate it. All right, so actually, let me delete these guys here and put like this. All right, so let's take a look at what happens if I hit play. I actually prepared this scene with some prefab spawning from the main camera. So if I hit play, you can see they just go everywhere because we haven't really solved the problem of collisions either. So let me go to the tile map and add a tile map collider 2D component, new component. Notice that it automatically sets up collision information, even like within the tiles. It's not like on one tile it's on and one tile it's off. Like on this corner tile, this is the wall part, and it merges all this collision information for one tile map. So let me hit play. And there you go, perfect collisions. Okay, let's take a look at another one. We made another brush like that, and it's this pipe thing over here. And let me just remove the component. Oh, it's a bit confused. Okay, so this is like a pipe brush. And notice how when I'm drawing, it automatically selects the right tiles. Like I'm going through this cross, and whoop, there it changes. Imagine having to do this, like if you manually select the tiles, it would just add so many boring steps that get in the way of your creative process. And those are the kind of features that we're looking at recently to add to the 2D toolset. Okay, so that's pretty good. Like you can have this pipe brush and this, these floor tiles, and Unity automatically selects the right ones for you. But in your game, you'll probably have some other tiles that maybe have some custom logic on how they need to be placed. One of the nice things about this system is that actually these smarter brushes here, they're actually scripts in the project folder here. So if I double-click the pipeline brush, what you'll see is that it's just a very simple C# script that derives from grid brush. And the only thing you need to do is explain the system. Well, if there's a tile there and a tile there, I want you to select that one. And if there's, if the layout's a little bit different, I want you to select that other one. Notice, by the way, that this script opens up in Visual Studio 2015, which ships with Unity 5.2 on Windows now, and it's the default script editor. So it's a really nice scripting experience as well as debugging. I'm happy to, well, if you like it so much, let me actually show you how it works. So I'll put a breakpoint here, and I'll just hit Attach to Unity. Notice I'm in the pipeline brush script, so I go back to Unity, select my tile map, go back to the pipeline brush, and I start drawing. Boink. We hit the breakpoint, and it has all the Visual Studio debugging features that you're used to. I can hover over these things here. I have my call stack over here and all my locals over there, just like you're used to. It's just there's just much less friction to start debugging, so it's just easier to do. All right, enough about scripting and debugging. Let's go back to 2D. Okay, so that was tile maps, and I want to show another productivity feature that we've been working on. Let me go back here and let me drag in this platform here. So if you make a 2D platformer and you have a platform like this, typically how you would do the assets for this, either you make this asset as one big thing in Photoshop or whatever you draw in, and then you bring it into Unity, or you would, in your Photoshop, you would build it as separate pieces. Maybe you have 2 or 3 pieces for the grass, for different variations, and then 1 piece for the rocks that are tiling. And you bring these in as separate pieces into Unity, and then in Unity you construct a platform like this. And it's kind of the same thing as with the tile maps, that we feel like, well, this manual placements of all this stuff, it gets into the way of your creativity. So what we have here is sort of like a procedural sprite. Take a look at what happens if I have this corner point here and I just drag it over here. Notice that the grass, it doesn't scale and becomes ugly. It tiles nicely. I can go like this. And it's the same thing as with the tile maps. It's just really nice and easy to just map out my level like this. Maybe I just want a little wall over here and another wall over here. Like that, or maybe it should be a bit more bigger. Maybe this curve is not so nice, so I'm going to select it and make it a curvy one. Notice how nice it is to make these more organic shapes that are much harder to do with regular sprites, because they're always rigid and you can rotate them and place them, but you can't really make them bendy and things like that. So you can do that with this. And as I said, this is, it falls into the same category of just removing the obstacles of the creative process and just making the process of making your scene more fun. Okay, let me move this to the left a little bit, because there's one thing still missing from the game. I hear all of you thinking it already, and obviously that is giant killer octopus tentacles. So this is actually exactly the same system. It's another procedural sprite or smart sprite. We're not quite sure how to call them yet. If you have any good ideas, we'd love to hear about it. And this one has 3 control points, and it has the same nice authoring workflow. I can just take this and move it there, maybe have one here, make it a little bit bendy like that. Maybe you want to have this thing come from this other direction, like that. And, if you can have one, why not have 2? So we're going to make another one, move it down, select it like this. And we have all these nice sort of features here, because you have per control point control over things like size. So you can do things like that, make it really big there, and really tighten it up over there. It's a bit of an ugly octopus. I guess this is a seafood town, right? So I guess I can say that. All right, let me get this a little bit lower. All right, so it's just a really fun way to author your scene very, very quickly. I really like it. So let's see what happens if I hit play. And here we have all my prefabs again, but nothing really good happening. So let me add a collider to this guy. I'm actually going to make this a little bit less fat because I'm not sure it's going to work. And let me add a edge collider to that. And hit play. Oh, and notice that the collisions are not quite right on the octopus, and we have this setting here, the collider scale. I'm not sure if you can see it very well on the big screen, but notice the green line there. I can move it either way from here or to here. So for this octopus, I actually want to move it all the way there. But for this, if we have some grass here, for this shape, if I add an edge collider here, obviously I don't want to have the collision all the way here at the edge of the grass because grass is not that hard. I want to actually move the collision in a little bit, so it's over there. So let's take a look at what happens if we do it like this. Nice. So this is really great for fast authoring, and sort of by accident, it's also really great for a few other things, because if you were to take this entire platform, maybe even with the octopus arms, if you were to make this in Photoshop and bring it into Unity, you're paying for all the pixels, right? You have to download all these pixels, you need to have them all in the memory, you have to put them on the GPU. But if you look at this procedural one, the only textures that we have is this rock and this tiling rock over here, and then we have this piece of grass. So it's very, very, very friendly from a memory consumption point of view. All right, I think that's it for my 2D demo. While we are on the topic, oh, actually, there's one thing I should mention. Andy Touch, our evangelist, he has a presentation on the new 2D stuff. It's tomorrow, and before the keynote, he was bragging that it was going to be the best presentation ever. So let's see if he can step up his game. We'll see, Andy. I'm going to visit. When is it? Oh, he got scared. That's fine. All right, so while we are on the topic of productivity enhancements, we have a few more coming down the pipe, and they are related to building your game. And for that, I would like to invite the man on stage who built Unity Cloud, the cloud build, is Patrick Curry. Take it away, Patrick.
Thanks, Lucas.
Here we go.
Thanks. What's up, y'all? We made the technology behind Cloud Build because we needed it when we were making games. And now that we're part of Unity, we get to share this technology with all of you to help you with your productivity. Unity Cloud Build takes the time and processor-intensive process of making builds off of your plate and off of your PCs and puts it into the cloud. We take your source code and your assets, we compile them into playable builds, and then we notify you when they're ready to be installed and played on your devices. It's a huge productivity boost and a big time savings because everyone on your team can make a build. No more waiting for an engineer to make a build at the end of the day. Artists, designers, sound designers can all make builds on demand and play them on their device without waiting for anyone. How big of a time savings is it? Well, in our first year, we've processed over 300,000 hours of builds. That's a ton of time. That's a ton of time you didn't spend watching progress bars on your PC. And it's time you got back, you could spend writing code, making artwork, and just making your games more awesome. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's hear from some developers who are using Cloud Build on a daily basis.
TinyBot makes educational apps for kids all around the globe. Not as sort of a traditional game with a beginning and end. They're simulations of the real world. Unity Cloud Build is a way for us to all be on the same page at the same time. It's really changed our workflow in that instead of waiting a couple of days or a week for a build, we can now check in pretty much continuously. One of the main reasons that we moved to Unity is that it allowed us to distribute the work more evenly.
We actually used to build a lot of times manually. Now it's a totally simplified process. You focus on the task as a developer or an artist, and everything else is just handled automatically for you. It was incredibly easy to integrate Unity Cloud Build. Once we switched to Unity, we as developers and programmers became less of the bottleneck because things didn't always have to go directly through us. We actually had a repository now that artists could commit to.
It does seem to make the process easier, and we do get a lot more frequent builds to look at. I can go on and check for new updates pretty constantly and see how things are looking.
With mobile development, you need to test the touches on the device frequently. So with Cloud Build, you don't have to make the build yourself, and you can always download builds on the device and actively test it.
Using Cloud Build, we can point testers at different scenarios, and we can kind of get that A/B testing scenario that companies often try and hit just to see what works and what doesn't work. I would recommend using Unity Cloud Build to another developer because it's so simple, because it takes that very time-consuming step away from you. There's no reason you shouldn't be using Cloud Build.
Thanks. We love hearing these stories from developers, and it's your feedback that drives our team to make Cloud Build better than ever and adding lots of new features. So let's talk about the new features, all of which we're launching today in open beta for you to try out. So we heard from you how hard it is to make builds for all the different app stores that are out there. iOS App Store, Google Play, tons of other app stores, and of course each one has its own technical requirements and requires custom builds. We'll power through.
Is it on? Tell me.
Thank you. It had to be me. All right, this is a really painful process, and some of our smart developers have gotten around it by creating multiple projects and configuring each one for a different app store. Well, luckily you don't have to do that anymore. We're adding a new feature called Build Targets, which allows you to take a single Unity project and configure it for multiple different app stores with custom configurations and create unique builds for each. We're also adding OBB file support for Google Play, which lets you upload your extra large builds to the store. Now, speaking of platforms, today Cloud Build is built for iOS, Android, and Web Player. But we're very pleased to announce that we're now building for Windows Desktop, Mac OS X, and Linux. Thanks. If you're making PC games in Unity, Cloud Build has your back. And together with Build Targets, it adds up to a very powerful system where one Unity project can be configured to build for 6 different operating systems and an endless number of build targets. Now, we have tons of new features to talk about in Cloud Build. We have a session later today and some more later this week, so come check them out. But we want all of you and everyone watching at home to try out all these features, not just in beta, but forever. So we're announcing today that all features in Cloud Build are now free. Thanks. Desktop builds, build targets, all 4 source control systems, OBB support, all of this is available right now for free at the Cloud Build website. So sign up, try it out, come say hi at our sessions, and have a great Unite. Thanks so much.
I'm not going to use the mic. Great job, Patrick. We unplugged your mic to see if you would take it in stride. Yeah, pretty good job. All right. So when Unity started 10 years ago, we had I wasn't actually there, but there was a relatively straightforward mission. We just wanted to help you make games. But 10 years in the game industry is a very long time. And these days, game developers face new and different challenges. Challenges like, how do I make sure that I make enough money from my games that I can actually afford to work on them full time? Or challenges like, how do I actually know how people are using my game? So for that very first topic of how do I make sure that I can make some money from my game, one of the ways that we're trying to help with this is Unity Ads. And in Unity 5.2, we ship with out-of-the-box advertising support. And let me just quickly show you how that works. So we're going to go back to my 2D demo here. And I'll go to the services window. You can get there by either clicking on this little cloud guy over here or going to like Window and Unity Services. And it has all our services that we have right now. I'm going to go to Ads. And all you need to do is flip on that switch here. Once the switch is flipped on, you need to take this piece of code and put it somewhere in your game. I say that as if that's a very easy thing to do. Yeah, just take these 3 lines of code, 4 lines, and 2 lines only have braces, so, you could say it's 2 lines of code. Just put it in your project somewhere and you'll be good to go. But of course, it's not that easy because, if you want to design your game to have an ad, you can do it in a really crappy way that's going to piss off all your users, or you can do it in a way that's actually, that actually works a lot better. So just as when we try to help you make the game, we cannot make the game for you, we cannot solve the whole ad puzzle for you. You still have to design the game to take an ad, but we can take care of making all the deals with all the advertisers, dealing with transferring all these gigabytes, terabytes probably of video content all over the world through different CDNs, dealing with like the financial infrastructure to do all these payouts and everything. That's something that we can take care of. So if you turn it on and you ship to the device and people start playing, this is what your ads dashboard is going to look like. It's my awesome 2D project. Obviously, the numbers are fake because it's only been live for 10 seconds. All right, so that's one of the ways that we try to help with the challenge of how do I make sure that I can make enough money from my game, at least so that I can afford the time to actually work on them. For the second challenge of how do I know how people are actually using my game? For this, Unity 5.2 comes with out-of-the-box analytics support. And I'd like to invite to stage John Chang from the Unity Analytics team to talk us through some of the features that are in 5.2 and some of the new ones that are coming down the pipe. Here we go, John. All you?
Cool. Thank you, Lucas. So our team is incredibly excited about the new services integration into the editor in 5.2. We feel like it's a huge step forward for all the services, but for analytics specifically, what I'd love to do today is show you 3 of the new features that we're building on top of that integration. The first one is focused on integration. I'm sure some of you have either integrated analytics or been asked to integrate analytics. Obviously, an incredible pain, right? And when you've had to go through that, dealing with trying to figure out the SDK, figuring out why the thing was working or wasn't working, trying to understand, was your app crashing because of analytics? Well, with the new integration, that has all changed. And let me show you what the integration process actually looks like now. So you cruise over to the services window. You select analytics. And you'll see a button here to enable analytics, right? So clicking on that button, what you want to start to do with analytics is get access to data that you haven't had access before. Insights about players, not only if they're coming to your game, but if they're staying, if they're playing, if they quit. And oh, by the way, we have just enabled analytics. There was no code involved, there was no typing. Just by clicking that button, you have access to the entire analytics suite. We can also validate that integration in real time by going to the dashboard. And what we've done is built in a real-time validator that checks your validation in real time. So as you can see, data here has already started to flow from your integration as your game as you hit play within the scene. So it's a completely seamless integration that now makes analytics more accessible than ever. And because of that, we're able to drive insights to game developers everywhere, right? So for example, indie developers such as Studio Z have been using Unity Analytics to get really agile analytics right out of the box with no work. Large studios like Bandai Namco with Pac-Man 256, which went straight to the charts and had over 10 million users, they're using Unity Analytics and the raw data feature to actually just pipe that data directly into their existing BI features so that really what we're able to provide is a seamless ETL experience, right? And what that means is because analytics is so accessible now, there's really no reason not to do it. It's a seamless integration. These tools are built specifically for game development. And it's an easy to understand dashboard that you can use right out of the box. And just like Patrick said, did I mention it's free, right? So everything that I'm showing you today will be free. The next feature, what you're seeing here, is Unity heat maps. And it's a visualization of data within your game that's built on this core analytics platform. It's the foundation for really making data-driven decisions. And what you're seeing here is a heat map from our friends at Blackthorn Media for their game Dragonflight. And what I'll do is show you not only how they were able to instrument this heat map, but also how they were able to drive insights directly from it. So let me open up that scene. And so you're seeing here the scene that they were using that they wanted to understand better. And so we used two of the core analytics features to really drive the heat maps. The first is a custom event capture feature that allows you to capture any event that you want within your game. In this case, what we're doing is instrumenting a custom event that you see here, a heatmap.send, that will basically fire off every 30 seconds to track position. So by dropping in this code, hitting save, shipping out a build, and getting some players to start playing your game, you can then get access to this data as soon as it's created. So assuming you've spent a couple days getting people to play your game, you can come back to the editor and go to the heat map function and use the second analytics feature, which is access to your raw data, right? So in this case, we'll capture data over the last couple days and hit download, and that will take it directly from the Unity Analytics servers and drop it onto your machine. The next step that we'll do is then take that data, and we'll grab it here. We just downloaded, we'll grab that, and we'll use an aggregation function that's built directly in as well. And what that does is adjust the granularity of the aggregation based on how much data you have and the kind of visualization that you're looking to do. So we'll process that, convert it into a JSON file, and next, render it directly in the scene, right? So there are various options that you can take here, including the color and things like that that you might want to do. One feature I find especially insightful is disaggregating time, right? So in the custom event, we actually capture not only location but time, so you could actually play this heat map as the player played it, generating that kind of visual trail as they go. But in this case, let me just hit load, and you can see the heat map of actual player behavior has now been built directly onto your scene. And so you can take a look and see exactly where players are spending their time, getting stuck, spending money, those kinds of things. So this is the actual gameplay. And what Blackthorn thought was, well, our players exploring the whole map. And when they actually saw the heat map, you'll see here is activity was really congregated in one place. And what they do, they figured out, hey, maybe we'll put a fire buff in one part of the island. And you can see actually how that heat map changes to expand the actual landscape that the players played, increasing engagement, increasing fun of the game, and really changing the overall behavior. And so I'm really excited to announce today, and this is for the first time ever, that heat maps is available to everyone. You here at Unite will know about it first, so you can sign up and start making data decisions first. So really excited about this, and we hope you'll check it out. So the third feature that we're announcing today is focused around monetization, right? So we talked about ads monetization. In this case, we're talking about in-app purchases. And what we heard from developers is that not only was it really hard to understand what's going on with monetization, but actually enabling purchases was an incredible pain again, right? So let me tell you what I'm talking about. So imagine you have a very straightforward transaction flow within your game. This is what you want to do to enable transactions. And then you start with one platform, right? So you figure Apple, you try and figure out how to map that to that platform. Next, you start to think about Google and Google Play, and publishing there. You've heard good things about Windows 10. You want to expand to the Microsoft ecosystem. By the time you get to Amazon, you're left with an incredible spaghetti mess of code that you now have to maintain. You've got 90, 100 pages of documentation that you need to stay on top of. And it turns into this huge time sink that really, as Lucas says, is just not any fun and takes away from the creative process, right? And so I'm sure a lot of you have been through this before, and it's a problem that we're here to solve, right? So what I'm announcing now is Unity IAP. And we're building this directly into the engine. And we're just so excited about this. It's an extensible cross-platform API that's built into the actual engine. It integrates seamlessly with Unity Analytics, so you have all the reporting that you need for all platforms in one place. We're going to build on top of this things like hosted inventory management. We're going to use the expertise of the analytics team with machine learning to help you with fraud detection, to even clean up your reporting even further. And how this will work is, just like the integration I just showed you, all you'll need to do is flip on IAP, select the platforms that you want. There's no reason not to do them all now. And then one single set of Unity IAP code for those callbacks placed in the right locations. And you've enabled not only transactions across each of these platforms, but seamless reporting in your dashboard, right? We feel it's a game changer, and you'll no longer have to spend time on things that really should be handled directly by us. It's going to be available in 5.3. We're starting with these platforms. The additional features like fraud detection will roll out on top of this, but we really hope you'll come check it out. We're testing it now, so if it's something you want to check out ahead of time, please come talk to us, and we'd love to get you on board. So, analytics, services, everything is more accessible than it's ever been. There's no reason you shouldn't be checking it out. Come check out the services window, integrate analytics. We've got a couple talks tomorrow afternoon, both on how developers have used analytics and also diving further into the custom event feature, raw data access, and a couple uses on heat maps that I'm sure you'll get a lot out of. So with that, let me grab Lucas back on stage.
Nice job. Great stuff, John. Great stuff. This analytics stuff, it's crazy. There's so much incredibly valuable information of your game. It's out there, and it's just screaming at you to look at it. And it's so easy these days, with the new built-in analytics, it's so easy to actually look at this information that to not use that to make your game better, it would be downright criminal. So we are approaching the end of the technical session, but there's one more guest speaker that I would like to invite up on the stage. It's Patrick Naw from the Square Enix Montreal, a studio that has been making Lara Croft Go, and we'll hear about their story. Take it away, Patrick.
Thanks.
There you go.
Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. For those that don't know Square Enix Montreal, we're this little studio up north, hard at work bringing some of the coolest IP from Square Enix to the mobile ecosystem. We released Hitman Go last year, released Hitman Sniper a few months ago, and just released our third baby, Lara Croft Go. Of course, yes. So, obviously it's hard to stand out every month when there's 50,000 apps that release on the App Store or on the Google Play Store. our strategy is to come out with games that are, first off, premium, high-end, and that focus on making it beautiful and creating an innovative experience, and that are crafted with care. Obviously, we're working with long-standing console franchises that have been associated with console and hardcore gaming. Making those into new experiences that is tailored especially for the mobile devices and mobile players is hard work. But every time we do it, we pride ourselves in saying that we should go for Mobile Game of the Year every time. But how do we do it? Well, first off, we need great Unity developer. Yes, it sounds cliche because everyone says it. But we need these creative developers that wants to craft a game that people will be talking about. And we know that the Unity community is full of those people. And the second way we do it is Unity. Unity does so much of the legwork for us that we can focus on what we do best, and that's making awesome games. Obviously, you know about Lara Croft Go project. We're really proud of what we just shipped, but sorry. Yeah, I'm just obviously messed up. Yeah, so obviously, we released Lara Croft Go a few weeks ago. We're extremely proud of what we've done. It's a project that we shipped with a small team, which is, we're really proud of the result we achieved. But we could not have made it without Unity. The game is today released on iPhone, iPads, Android tablet and phones, Windows tablet, Windows phones, and Windows 10, and all because of Unity. So I can talk in length about the project, but I prefer saying show, don't tell. So here's a trailer for Lara Croft Go. So have a great Unite, everyone. Here's Lucas.
Wow, great work. Thanks so much for being here with us today, Patrick. All right. So we're reaching the end of the technical part of the keynote. And for those of you who have been to more than one Unite, you might have noticed that generally we don't let the marketing folks near the stage. We just tend to not do that. But today we're making an exception because we found a new great guy who is leading up all our marketing initiatives at Unity. This is his very first Unite. So please help me welcome to our wonderful community, Clive Downey, Unity's new Mr. Marketing.
No pressure.
Welcome
Thanks,
aboard,
man.
buddy.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Can I have that?
Yes.
Thank you, Lucas. No pressure. No pressure. Thanks for having me. I've been in this wonderful world of games for just over 20 years. My first thing I ever did in this great world was QA, way back. A little shout out for QA there. It's nice. I QA'd the Bard's Tale construction set on Atari ST. That was my first game. And shout out for the Bard's Tale. That's good. This is going well. This is going well. And I've marketed lots of games, I've led game teams, I've led companies, and throughout all of that, the thing which has just kind of been my true line that I've always been interested in doing is making sure that the games I've worked on and around have been discovered by the right gamers. That they've been able to be discovered by the right gamers so they can be played by the right gamers so that all of the hard work that's gone into them has been experienced by the people who will be delighted by those products. Now, the irony is, in this golden era of gaming that we live in now, where there are so many more people around the world who can play games, and there are so many more games being created, it's just really hard to achieve that discovery for games. Discovery kind of sucks right now for games. Unless you have the ability to get a feature from one of the big boys, or unless you want to participate in the $15 cost per install club, or unless you have a massive network that you can cross-promote products into, discovery is hard. It may actually be one of the hardest problems. And today, I want to talk to you about how Unity wants to solve that problem. We want to start to solve that problem of discovery. It's going to take a while, and it's going to take a couple of phases, and I'm going to talk to you about the first phase today. And we're going to do it through this. Now, you've seen this logo today in a variety of different forms on videos, but this is more than a logo. This is the program that we're rolling out today called Made with Unity that's going to do one thing. It's going to allow you to tell your story and be discovered. Made with Unity, tell your story, be discovered. Now, let me break this down for you. Why tell your story? Well, word of mouth is still the #1 driver of discovery. When other people you trust tell you about things, you listen to them. And for people to tell you about games, they need to be interested in games. And for people to be interested in games, they need to have a story around that game. The story needs to grab them. Why the game was created, the challenges that the game had, that the game makers had. That's why we're going to invite you today to tell your story using the tools that we're going to give you. And once you tell your story, we're going to start helping you be discovered. And we're going to start helping you be discovered using the assets and using the reach and the power that Unity has. And we're going to start small and we're going to grow from there. We're going to start in these areas. And I'm going to talk through a couple of these areas today. Online, events, and then ultimately our grand aspiration to move the content that we create directly to gamers. Let's talk about online first. Now, we're going to start solving the problem of discovery in online for a very, very simple reason. We have over 10 million unique visitors coming to our websites every single month. Those are 10 million unique visitors who are from this peer set. They're from your peer set. They're from the development community worldwide. They're from hardcore gamers worldwide who come to Unity because they understand and appreciate what we can represent. And we're going to create an online destination that should be the center of the Made with Unity universe. Now, at that destination, we'd like you to tell your story online. And we think there are two ways you can tell your story. There's self-produced, where you can create blogs and dev diaries and feature pages. And then there's ways that we can tell your story for you. We're going to invest in our own Made with Unity team that's going to reach into our development community, find stories, feature those stories, highlight those stories, create our own stories to back your discovery amongst that online audience of ours. And we're going to provide you with storytelling tools. We're going to provide you with specific blog creation tools. We're going to provide you with content management systems. And they're all going to be linked to your Unity account so that your story can be personalized to you. And you can do it whenever you want, whenever you please, within the context and the scope of your development. Now, it's not all theory. All of this is live today. And it's live today on madewith.unity.com. It's all there. It's all there. Let's hope it works. And let's take it for a spin. Let's very briefly take it for a spin. I'd like to invite one of the members of the Made with Unity team, Mr. Matt Finney, up on stage to talk us through how the website works and what you can expect to see on the website, this destination in the Made with Unity universe when you start creating your stories today. Matt, hello. Hello. Okay. If we can flip to the site. Are we on? Yeah, we good? Looks good. All right, well, here's a couple of areas on the site. First is the stories area. Now, this is the area where you've created your stories about your game development. This can be your developer diary. This can follow the track of your product as it comes to life. You can tell the world what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it, so they can start to have an appreciation of the work you're doing and then tell others. Additionally, you can create game pages. These are more akin to simplistic game marketing landing pages. This is later on in the development. You can talk to the world about the features in your product. You can talk about the narrative arc of the product. You can upload videos here from a launch perspective. And these game pages link directly to the sites where your game is available. So they'll link directly to the App Store. They'll link directly to Google Play. They'll link directly to Steam. Fans of these pages can upvote them across all the social networks. Additionally, there's your developer page. Your developer page is your home page in the Made with Unity universe. This is where you can tell the world why you exist as a game developer. If you're a studio or if you're just an individual, this is where you can bring this to life. Now, how does this all roll up? Well, it rolls up into the games page. This is a games page which is searchable by people visiting this site based on what games they like, based on the platforms that those games are on. And all of these game tabs here act as the jumping off point for the stories underneath them. And then the home page, finally, this is the main destination part of the site that you'll come to first off when you visit this page. This is where the freshest news takes place. This is where the main featured product land. So that's just a brief glimpse of madewith.unity.com that's live today. Now, how do you tell your story? Well, it's real easy. You go to the Tell Your Story section. It's just massively intuitive. So let's go there. Let's show these wonderful people. Well, that's all about that. So you tell your story, and here's the thing. If you've got a Unity account, which all of you have, you log in, and it's showtime. It's that simple. You sign in using your Unity account, and you're off. You can create all of the pages and all of the discovery vehicles that I've just shown you today. So that's just a brief view of what's live now, and we invite you to get on there, similar to the founding people who've created assets for us today, and start telling your stories so we can start getting them in front of that traffic that we can bring to that site as a first phase. Thanks, Matt. Thank you. So, what's next? We have some grand aspirations for the site. It's just a starting point. Of course, you should be able to live stream demos on the site so you can show people your game come to life as it's playable, and talk people through it. Developer Hangouts, our Made with Unity team will come out into the community and hang out with you in your studio, other exotic locations, bring your story to life for you. And then collections, peers in the community, fans, celebrities maybe, they can create their own collections based on the Made with Unity products they like to aid discovery and bring people to the site. So that's the online component of Made with Unity in this first phase. Secondly is events. I want to talk to you very briefly about events. Events are where we bring the Made with Unity products and stories to life in the real world. First of all, we'll be bringing Made with Unity via our showcase to all of our Unite events in 2016. You'll see the first version of that outside today. There's 29 developers who are showing their products along with the people who made them, telling their story. And we'll be bringing the showcase to all of our Unite events and asking people from within the game-making community within Unity to bring their products there. We'll also be bringing the showcase to the behemoth that is GDC in March in a very big way. And we're thinking about consumer shows where we can bring our Made with Unity stories to life through 2016. Now, finally, on the event side, I want to talk to you about something that's exciting today. We thought about the Made with Unity program and how we could give it a fuel injection and a boost at the start of this to bring lots of traffic to our online universe. And I'm very excited to let you know today that we've partnered with the 2015 Game Awards that's going to take place in December. Now, the first Game Awards happened last year. It was live streamed online. Over 7 million people watched the first live stream of the Game Awards where the celebration of the best and brightest happened. This year, what we're doing is we've sponsored the awards. We're bringing Made with Unity to life there and all of the Made with Unity ecosystem. And we're going to do it in this way. Between now and the end of October, the producers of the Game Awards show are going to be scouring the Made with Unity website for all of your stories. And they're going to look for the 3 stories that best represent the indie gaming scene. And then the producers of the show are going to create 3 long-form broadcast quality stories, which all of them will be aired on the program, the live broadcast in early December from the 2015 Game Awards. Now, this is going to do two things. Firstly, it's going to give those 3 stories a huge amount of discovery from the downstream impressions that these stories are going to have on the live broadcast. But additionally, when those stories are shown on the live broadcast, we're going to be featuring the madewithunity.com website. So people who want to see more about the stories and more about the place that they've come from will come to the website that I've just shown and start to kick off the aiding of discovery of all of your stories and games. So we're really excited to partner with the Game Awards to fuel inject the Made with Unity ecosystem. Now lastly, where's all this going? I talked to you about how we want to start solving the hard problem of discovery. And we're solving it with the things that we have now, online and events. But really what we're creating is we're going to create a massive pipeline of content and game assets from this community. And it is our aspiration to, in the future, be able to take that pipeline and direct it specifically to where gamers are in a more direct way. I'm going to be really excited to come back and talk to you about what that really means and what our future plans are to do that in the coming months. But we really have grand aspirations for how to solve this big problem of discovery, and we'd like to thank you for joining us on that journey. So remember, Made with Unity kicks off today. Together, we're going to solve the problem of discovery that is currently persisting in this ecosystem and get more gamers in front of more of the great games that you create. So please, tell your story, get online, and let's start to get everyone discovered. Thanks a lot. John?
Thanks, Clive. And so this is serious. When we say that we're here to enable your success, we're pouring resources. We're investing very heavily to give you a pipeline to the gamers you need to find. Our resources, your benefit, it's part of who we are. It's part of what we're trying to build. Now, I have the great pleasure now to introduce one of the true heroes of the game industry. Now, I don't use that word lightly. He's certainly one of my heroes. And as background, you probably know him as the worldwide creative director for many years for Blizzard. You might know of him as the guy that designed or led the team that designed World of Warcraft. You might know him as one of the greatest and most successful designers in the history of our industry. My great pleasure to introduce Rob Pardo, going to come up here today and tell you a little bit about what he wants to talk about, which I have no control over. Rob, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here in Boston. It's exciting also just to see so many game developers in one place and have some stuff I want to talk to you about today. And call this talk Games with Friends. So I've been in the industry for a long time, made a lot of games. You know, you guys may have played some of them. I hope you have. But probably the most relevant game to this audience, which I did right before I left Blizzard last year, was Hearthstone, which was made with Unity. But for the first part of my talk, though, I'm not going to talk a lot about game design or games that I've worked on, but I really want to talk more about the games I played before I became a game designer. And when I was a kid, if I get this to work, I played pretty much everything. You know, I played sports, I played board games, I played card games, arcade games, PC games. You know, I just was kind of a gamer even beyond the term gamer from a video game standpoint. But I really remember probably the first game that really had a big impact on me as a kid and, you know, as future as a game designer was when I went down the street to my friend's house, and this is, you know, when I was like around 10 years old or something, and his older brother had this table. And on the table were like all these crazy looking dice. And I was like, what is that? And of course, you know, that game is Dungeons and Dragons. And, you know, it's such a interesting game, you know, and to kind of deconstruct it a little bit, you know, it really allows you to kind of have this storytelling experience with your friends in like real time. You know, you kind of have to work as a team. You know, it's very social. And most importantly, you can't play Dungeons and Dragons alone. You know, and it was something that it's the first time I really kind of had this social experience with games in that sort of a way where imagination and fantasy, and it was definitely had a big impact down the line for me as a game designer. In a lot of ways, you almost look at Dungeons & Dragons as that old school storytelling which you do around a bonfire. So, you know, in a lot of ways, it's like storytelling 2.0. But then after that, I started playing a lot more computer games and video games. So, then the next kind of game that really had a big impact on me was this game called Karate Champ. And then afterwards, Street Fighter 2, of course, came out. And it was really interesting, having that moment in the arcade, because almost all the games you played in the arcade back then were kind of single-player games where you take turns. And here finally was a game that was competitive, and I just, loved being able to sit there, and be able to take all comers and just use one quarter for once and be able to play for like an hour on one game. And then, the PC scene really came online, and you started seeing, services like Kali and the ability to play local area network games. And, I played a ton of Doom, ton of Descent. At that point, I was starting to get into the industry. And, kind of introduced these other concepts along with being competitive, but, kind of games that you could just kind of play on and on and on. And had leaderboards, so it wasn't just, a win or lose situation, but you could actually kind of see how you're improving and getting better. And, of course, kind of the, if you're playing deathmatch games, sometimes you'll have, alliances of opportunity. And then after that, the next game that had a huge impact on my career ended up being Warcraft 2. I hadn't started at Blizzard yet. I was actually working at Interplay Productions at the time, and Warcraft 2 kind of came through the studio like wildfire. And I put it up here as a team-based multiplayer game, which clearly it really wasn't. But it was the first game I remember playing really deeply that we would play as teams, and we would have, kind of the gameplay department or the art department, and we would separate ourselves into teams and play, and it really added this whole new dimension to kind of what I was seeing happening with kind of multiplayer games. And then, of course, we started seeing online worlds, and Ultima Online came onto the scene. And it had this really powerful moment for me when it was funny because I was watching some other people in the studio play the game, and they would do things like kill birds with arrows, and then they would collect the birds' feathers so then they could make more arrows to kill more birds. And it didn't seem very compelling to me at the time. But then I'd play the game, and you kind of go around the corner and you go into like the city, and suddenly there's like 30 other player avatars on screen all talking and interacting, and it was like this big aha moment of, wow, we now have online worlds and communities, and the world continues even when you're not online. And then, EverQuest was kind of the next big game that I think had an impact on me as a gamer and also as a game designer point of view, because EverQuest kind of took that concept but added challenges to it that really required a deep level of commitment and teamwork, and these long-standing guilds that created these very deep friendships, actually. Like there's tons of people that in my EverQuest guild that I'd met entirely only online and ended up having friendships to this day with some of the people that I've met. So, I thought I would put up this chart of approximate playtime that I've had in some of my favorite games. And the thing is, like if I was just ranking these games as far as like which one do I love the most, they're all pretty equal. But the thing that I think is interesting when you kind of chart them like this is just how much more engagement kind of multiplayer dynamics add to playtime and the amount of time you'll spend playing the games. So I guess what I'm saying is multiplayer is very compelling. It's one of the things I think is the most interesting types of games out there. And I know there's a lot of people who love narrative games or puzzle games, and those games are wonderful too. But this is my talk, and this is what I'm excited about. So I'm going to talk about multiplayer. And these are some of the things that I think is really compelling about it. The competition, cooperation, friendships, community. But the last point is the one that I think is really, really interesting, because I think these multiplayer dynamics in our interactive entertainment is one of the things that makes our entertainment medium unique compared to the others. Because if you kind of think about it, there's a lot of other mediums, and they've been out a lot longer than ours, of course. But reading, has been around for a very long time, and I'm sure lots of people here, enjoy reading books. Really allows you to really get into a story and a narrative, and get into the characters' heads and their thought process. It can develop out really vast worlds that are really interesting. I'm sure lots of people have seen how Game of Thrones as a book has transitioned to like a TV show. And it's interesting, when you kind of take that example, you start seeing the difference between movies and TV versus books. And they do different things. They have a lot of overlap, but they also do different things well. I think with movies and TV, you have a much deeper emotional connection to the characters and to the character arcs. Obviously, can visualize things in a way that you might not even be able to do with your imagination in a book. So, even though it's an overlapping medium, it has kind of its area where it really outshines reading. And then music as a medium, I don't even know if I can completely understand why people love music. I just know that we do, and it connects with us emotionally and has that dopamine response. And it's something that, there's even those moments where you can actually enjoy music socially in a way that you probably can't in some of the other mediums. So it's something that starts feeling a little more social, a little more like what you get out of a multiplayer game. And then, of course, there's sports, which I think is the closest thing to multiplayer games. And very much if you actually compete in sports, gives you a lot of those same sorts of elements. But the thing is, I think that mostly people consider sports an entertainment medium because I think most people are spectators. And I think it's very apt here that we're here in Boston, which is this huge sports town, because people just love to invest in their teams and watch sports. And again, we have some games that are kind of like that in our industry. So I kind of did this crude sort of chart, which is totally inaccurate, but I think it just kind of gives you an idea of what I'm talking about here, with kind of these different entertainment mediums and kind of where the overlap is, but at the same time that I feel like each kind of medium has things that it does excellently that is separate from the other ones. And then I just kind of map some games onto it to kind of further the point in there, and again, very easy to debate where these games actually go, but it's just kind of to illustrate that again, that I feel like one of the things that I love about games as a medium is how big it is and how it can stretch across these other mediums and how you can kind of explore these different areas. So I guess then the question comes up, if multiplayer is so compelling and people play these games for thousands of hours, hundreds of hours, then why aren't we making more as an industry? And there's kind of a variety of reasons that I've heard over the years for why this is. One is maybe they're too niche. I've heard that a lot. I think less so now, but I still hear this phrase occasionally. And when you kind of look at some of the top grossing games of all time, I think you see a lot of multiplayer games there. And I think, again, it's really because of the deep level of engagement. And the thing is that, we'll play these games sometimes for years and years, which really allows, obviously those games to become very lucrative for the people that make them. Another thing I've often heard is, multiplayer games are very expensive. And I think, there is some truth to that, especially when you look at that previous slide. A lot of them are kind of massively multiplayer games or games that you might have to invest a lot of art resources into creating. But I don't think multiplayer dynamics and gameplay inherently have to be expensive. And one of the games that I find really compelling is Agario. And I'm sure a lot of people here have played it, but it's such a simple little game, but it's super compelling. And I think, again, it's really the multiplayer aspects that make it really, really interesting. So, the other thing I've heard a lot of is, it's too hard. It just making games for, where you have to really accommodate unlimited players or players and how they might interact with each other is too difficult to do. And I think this one probably has a little more traction. There's definitely some hard problems in multiplayer if you decide to take them on. Networking and server code is, one of the more difficult types of code. And it also happens to be the hardest programmers it tends to find in our industry, since some of the companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook tend to want to hire the exact same sort of people as we do. So, and then there's a lot of multiplayer games are going to have some level of matchmaking in them. And matchmaking only works if you have a critical mass of players. So you kind of get caught in this situation of, well, how do I create a critical mass so that my matchmaking works? And the matchmaking is the thing I need for my game to be super fun to find other players. So, that again is a real problem. Game balance, I think, is incredibly important in multiplayer games, more so than single player games. Because game balance is really the thing that's going to enable your game to last for months and months and hopefully years and years. And it's something that I don't know if it's a little bit of a black art, I think, sometimes, but it's something that you really need to invest in. And then, of course, even if you have a game that you just want to add some multiplayer elements to, that just adds features, which is chat or friends or other types of features just to make your multiplayer game better. So I do acknowledge the fact that making multiplayer games can be harder, but I guess I'm just saying it can be worth it too. It's multiplayer is really what I do believe is one of the things that makes our medium much more unique than the other mediums. And it's something that I also think is potentially inevitable, especially as more and more of the world comes online and you're seeing cloud services, it's getting easier and easier. But at the same time, the other reason I say it's potentially inevitable is because I think about other types of games. If you start looking outside of video games and outside of digital media about all the different games that we play or we have played in the past, there's like board games, there's card games, there's even like drinking games, like this guy here that's all excited about beer pong. We do have some examples of games like solitaire, but they're the rare exception. And I started trying to think about, well, why is it with other types of games, they're almost entirely social, but for some reason in our industry, I think it's kind of the opposite. We tend, the multiplayer games that are synchronous or deeply engaging are actually the rarity. Well, the thing that I think is most exciting about multiplayer and interactive games is really this concept of exploring friendships. When you're playing games with other people and you're playing games with friends, you're finding new friends, you kind of learn all these things about people. Like the first one there is like, who can you depend on? This comes up a lot when you're playing massively multiplayer games. Who's going to be that person that they just got that piece of awesome loot yesterday? Are they going to show up tomorrow to the same boss, to the same raid to help you out? You find out which of your friends are actually good at different things. Like when you're playing, let's say League of Legends and you kind of take on different roles. If you have that bad day, or you didn't get that piece of loot that you wanted, or, one of my favorite stories is actually when I played EverQuest, where, so once you get to a high enough level in EverQuest, when you're playing kind of their mage character, you get the ability to teleport to this location. And I stupidly decided to just punch the button and teleport as soon as I got to 24th level. And it teleported me to the middle of this dungeon. And I instantly got killed. And the way it works in EverQuest is you lose some experience, which made me lose my level. And all my stuff was on the ground in the middle of this dungeon that I'd ever been to before. And I am now naked, and I can't teleport back. So I was pretty screwed. So what I had to do is go back to all my friends. I was working at Blizzard at the time and told them what happened. They told me I was stupid, of course. But outside of that, we actually planned out that evening, figured out where the dungeon was, made a whole plan of attack, and they brought me, the back of the group, of course, because I'm naked and couldn't do anything, into the dungeon so I could get my gear back. And that was awesome. You find out, who among your friends are good winners and losers. Are they the type of people that do the table flip just because you beat them in a game? And then you get into these games, especially like the online games, where you can just constantly be chatting to your friends in your guild. And I've seen people that will just log online just so they can be chatting with their guild. And it kind of gives you this activity that you're sharing together, but you're talking about at the same time. In a way, again, kind of going back to my point, you can't really do that at a music festival. You can't really do that while you're watching a movie. But this is something that, with the right games, you're sharing this activity and you're kind of talking about your lives. And then the last one I found the most compelling and the most interesting, and I'd be really curious to know here, if you guys, how many people here know of somebody that have met their spouse in a multiplayer online game? it's a big number of people, and it's like, I know a lot of people that have actually met them, and it's like, I've seen a ton at BlizzCon. But I think, this is one of the bigger problems with multiplayer games, other than, the stuff that I mentioned in the other slide, which is what I call the water cooler problem. And we talk about this all the time in the context of World of Warcraft. So you kind of have this moment where you meet someone at the water cooler and you go, hey, you play games too? Well, so do I. So let's play a game together. So you find out very quickly that, hey, maybe we're going to play, League of Legends. Well, they've been playing for like 500 hours, and I've only been playing, and I just picked up the game last week. There's too much skill differentiation. There's not really a way for us to play together. Maybe we're playing, a massively multiplayer game, and find out very quickly that we're not the same level, so it's not going to be a very interesting game for us to play. Maybe, it's a story-based game, and you have to be at the same point of the story or have the same sort of quest lines, so we can't do that. Maybe it's a game that's sharded, and we're actually on different servers, and we can't play because of that reason either. And it's like all these arbitrary game design rules that, sometimes might have been technical limitations, but oftentimes I think it's because we're not really thinking about multiplayer in the right way. And obviously, almost all these problems are things that you can see in my games. So, I'm acknowledging the fact that, hey, this is something that we actually found to be a challenge over time in World of Warcraft that, while it ended up being a very successful game, it really was too bad that you can never really have these moments where you find out that one of your friends is a World of Warcraft player and never actually be able to play with them because of kind of all these different constraints. So I really feel like there's an opportunity there, if you do a multiplayer game, to be thinking about these things and think about, well, how can I make this game a way that people can just play if they find out that they're kind of in the same community? And I think there are some games that are good examples of solving the water cooler problem. So I think, there's a lot more than these, but I just think these are some really great examples where if, you just find out someone else plays Rock Band, you can go over to their house tonight and play them. Same thing. I've been playing a lot of Don't Starve lately, which is another fun one because, that's probably where permadeath helps out because you're going to get wiped out anyway, so you can start a new game with someone else. So, I start thinking about then, what is the future of multiplayer? And I think there's a lot of places where multiplayer games can go. I think increasingly now you're starting to see that gamers now are going across generations. It's like personally, I want to have more games that I can play with my kids. There's not a lot of great examples right now, but I think it's possible. I think before too much longer, you're going to see one of these big esports games really be able to create enough traction where you're going to start seeing it more regularly on TV. You're already starting to see the beginning of it, but I don't see any reason why 10 years from now, one of the games is actually going to be featuring on ESPN rather than on ESPN 15 or whatever they like to put it on now. Games that are device agnostic. Like something I think would be really interesting is if there was a massive multiplayer game that you're playing on the PC, but maybe there's a way to interact with it in some way on your mobile device. I think also we're starting to see games more and more try to cross language barriers and across kind of arbitrary barriers that we put into the games to kind of region lock things out so that we can control kind of our monetization or our marketing or things like that. But gamers are worldwide. They want to be able to play with each other, especially in competitive games. And then we're starting to see virtual reality come online. What is that going to do to multiplayer games and what kind of interactions are going to be out there? So I guess this talk ends up being a very selfish talk for me because I love playing multiplayer games. And right now I'm not making anything. I'm a little bit out of work. So I really need you guys as the Unity developers to make more stuff that I can play. Thank you guys very much.
So thanks, Rob. So it's thank you for actually presenting something that Unity supports, multiplayer gaming and platform agnosticism. We love multi-platform, we love multiplayer, and we're here to help you do that. So we're about to wrap up, and before we get to Carl, which I'll come on to in a second, I've been watching Twitter for the last hour or so, and I'm watching all this going on. And I've kind of noticed something. all the pictures are coming this way. So everybody, say cheese. I'm going to get a picture of you guys and put it out there. Like the cameras, lights are in my way. So I got one. So now you're in. So anyway, that's our keynote. Thank you for being here. And next up, to tell you what happens next, is Carl. Carl is our chairman and Uber Lord of global evangelism, and I think you probably all know him. So here he is to tell you what comes next.
Hi, John. Not for you. I love you too. So I thank you. I'm super excited to be here on the stage. It was a very interesting keynote, but there's one strange feature that I didn't know about. I didn't know that my alter ego in the AR world is a dog barking at golden gulls. Can't wait to download from the Asset Store. But first of all, I want to thank our speakers, the devs behind that, the devs community, to make this talk possible. But very important, I want to thank our sponsors to make this event possible. I thank you, partners and sponsors, to make this possible. I give everybody an applause for them. Phenomenal. But also, I want to thank you for being here. And I had the luck to meet with you a lot during the year at roadshow events, company visits, school events. We also had even a presentation at the planetarium at the Gulls Club in Lower Manhattan. Phenomenal. But also I want to thank you to be here. And I have a burning question on me, very close to my heart. For who is the first time here at Unite? Wow. Welcome to the Unite family. For me, it's phenomenal. Welcome. I thank you, and thanks to our partners, and also thanks to Unity. This is my 24th Unite. So I started making games when I was 1 year old. Okay. So I just want to give you some guidelines and information for the next coming days, so you get the maximum out of it. When you signed up, when you did the registration, we gave you some paperwork. One was a 2D level, where you can see, where you can find everything, where everything is. Okay. Now, who's still on Unity 4? Okay. There's a few. So that's why we made also a blueprint for you in Unity 4. So that's why, if you want to go to the third level, the VR level, you're going to see it better like this in Unity 5. You have a mirror API. But we're all here to learn about Unity and to network and to have fun. I just want to let you know that the schedule, you can still find it online. You just go to that website link. But one more important thing is this. On the back of your registration badge, you will find a way how you actually can fill in evaluations after each lecture. If you fill it in, you make the chance to win one of those beautiful socks. You see Unity on it. Okay? So for one is here, and I'm going to blindly throw it. Okay? So fill it in, and you make a chance to make those awesome socks. Okay? Also, I encourage you to go here next door. Next door is the exhibition hall. It's insane big, much bigger than last year. When you walk in, you're going to see a lot of partner booths. Go visit them, get information from them. But also, there's a huge section of the Unity kiosks where you can ask questions about the multiplayer, ads, cloud build. There's also the Asset Store, and in the back is Ask the Experts. So you have your really deep down technical questions, just go ask them, not me. Okay. Now, a very important thing, Clive announced together with Matt, the showcase Made with Unity. It's just across here the hall, and it runs today and tomorrow in the room 207. Okay. We're not just here for learning, but also for fun and parties. And that's my part. So tonight at 6:30, at the third floor, in the third dimension, we have our Facebook sponsoring our welcome reception. So I invite you to be there. I will be there too. You will get two coupons, and you can use it at all the different receptions we have. So see you there at 6:30. But tomorrow, there's a lot going on. We have a pre-cocktail awards sponsored by 3D Morph, also at 6:30, also at the third dimension. I hope to see you there too. But then, the awards ceremony. Seeing which game will be the best one. And Mark and I have bets on it. Mark will lose, I will win. But who attended the awards last year? Okay. I'm going also to hear the updated stories of Mark's teddy bear. What's going on with this teddy bear? So check that out. And then we have the awesome party, the crazy wild party of Microsoft provided. And that's a sneak preview of the party tonight. Mechanism has amazing use cases. Also, the party will be at Lucky Strike. Make sure you bring your ID. If you're not from North America, make sure you bring your ID. That's a custom where you bring your ID here. Okay. Lunch will be served right next door. It's already available. You don't have to rush. It's open until 1:30. I don't know what's for lunch. I got this image, so I can only think what it is. Yeah. But I want to thank you, and a big applause for you, and see you around at Unite.